Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and I am finally uploading my July wrap-up video. I'm sorry for all the background noise, it's a bit nuts around here at the moment, so hopefully it's not too distracting. This month I read a whopping 23 books. It's okay, some of them were really short. Because of the 23 books, and I don't want this to be a super long video, I'm going to break it into parts. So this part is going to be either standalone books that I read or books that I read just one of in the series, and the next video that will go up after this one is going to be the book series that I read, or that I read more of one book in the series, because I read a lot last month, which was fantastic because I've never read 23 books in a month, ever. It was school holidays, so I did have a good 2-week chunk off at the start of July, and I read basically one book a day, which was really, really fantastic because I've been in like a 5-year reading slump. I think I read maybe 10 books last year. So I'm really excited and I'm going to get straight into it. Because I have so many books, I'm not going to go too much into the plotline of the stories. There's not a huge number of new books in here. A couple I do have reviews for, so I will link to them down below. And I'll let you guys know sort of what I thought and my rating for them. First of all, the first 2 books that I read, these ones are really teeny tiny. These ones are sort of like in your self-help vein, but I got them because they were super pretty and they've got beautiful styled colours. I think, yeah, one's yellow, one's green. I have 6 of these books sold by Kiki K. The first one is Want to Live a Life of Happiness by Shade Meng Tan, and it has 10 tips on how to live a happier life. I'm going to say overall I gave all of these books 4 stars. So the second one is Are You Willing to Show Up and Live Your Best Life? And this one is by Dr. James Rouse. Gave them 4 out of 5 stars. They're really, really quick and easy to read. It literally has 10 tips for in both of the books, and they're really short, really easy to read. They have beautiful quotes, and they're just gorgeous, gorgeous visual books. So I love them. This one is a slight cheat. I did read this in the holidays, but I read it on the 30th of June. As I hadn't discovered BookTube then, I'm including it, and that is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I know there's sort of mixed reviews about this book on BookTube. I really like this book. People are saying it's like a cross between the Hunger Games and the X-Men. I get the X-Men comparison, but I'm not the biggest Hunger Games fan. I know what's wrong with me, but I really, really loved reading this book. I gave it about I gave it a 3.5 to 4 stars, only because I think there are some things that could have been improved, but I did really enjoy reading the book. I love the character of Meyer, and I love the fact that she's going through, finds herself in such an interesting circumstance, and the characters and the plot twists, and by the end, oh my goodness, you just sit there and go, oh my god, did that really just happen? This month I'm going to be trying to read Glass Sword and Cruel Crown, so I can find out what happens next, and also what happened before, but I did really enjoy reading Red Queen. So 3.5 to 4 out of stars. The next book is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, which is obviously a classic, so I don't think I really need to go too much into this. I've never read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I will admit classics are not my forte when reading. I think it's the language. It actually, this book is not huge, but it took me a while to get through it. I have been reading a lot of Alice in Wonderland inspired fiction recently, so I thought I'd better actually read the original book, and I do have Through the Looking Glass to read as well. I liked it. Yeah, same thing, about 3.5, 4 out of stars. It's very wacky. As you can imagine, it's Alice in Wonderland. The next book that I read is Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell, and I love Rainbow Rowell, and I had previously read Fangirl and Carry On, and I love those books so much. This is a little bit different. This is more of a contemporary young adult book. It's a story of Eleanor and Park, obviously, and how they meet, and they both come from very different worlds, but they fall in love, and it's beautiful. This book I gave 5 out of 5 stars, and I just loved it. The next book is Tandem by Anna Jarzab, which I think I picked up at a Scholastic book sale. I had no idea what it was, but it's actually a book about parallel universes, which is kind of cool. So in this story, a girl named Sasha on Earth is taken back to Aurora, which is the parallel version of our world, by a man named Thomas, and she's there to replace her exact copy, or doppelganger, Princess Juliana, who's gone missing. This is a really interesting book if you like that whole idea of parallel universes. It's not without its flaws, obviously. I gave it about a 3 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I haven't been able to find another book in this series yet, but I need to do a little bit more digging. But yeah, it's very interesting. There's the technical side of the travel between parallel universes is really interesting. It's called the Tandem, so that's how they actually travel through. And yeah, I really liked it. Next up is Night Owls by Jenn Bennett. I know that in the US, I think this goes by a different title. If I can find that, I'll leave that down below for you. This is a contemporary YA novel. It is about Jack and Beatrix who meet on a night owl bus in San Francisco, and they don't actually know each other's names there, but they become very curious about one another, and they finally track each other down after this night owl bus trip. And it explores their relationship as well as their family relationships as well. They both have secrets. They're both trying to find their place in the world, and it's a really lovely story. I don't read a huge amount of contemporary. There's a few contemporary books in my July wrap-up. This one I really, really liked. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Well worth a read. Okay, next up is Cinder by Marissa Meyer, which I know is very popular here on BookTube. Okay, so Cinder is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles. It is about, obviously, Cinder, and she works and lives in New Beijing. She is part android, and it explores how she meets some of the characters in the book. Prince Kai, who lives in the castle, so this is a Cinderella story adaptation, so she's going to meet, a prince. It's a really interesting world, I have to admit. I won't go too much into it if you haven't read it. I mean, there's plenty of reviews up here. It's been out for ages, but it's really, really interesting. And, I mean, the villain in this, Queen Levana, is really quite villainous, which is nice, and you don't get too much of that story in here, but it's really fascinating. So I'm hoping to be able to read some more in the series, hopefully in the next couple of months. I haven't bought any more of the books yet. I'm hoping to. So I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Martian by Andy Weir. This is actually one of my favourite books that I've read so far this year. It is science fiction. If you're not familiar with the story or the film, it is the story of a man who is left on Mars when his space crew have to abandon their Martian exploration mission. They believe he's dead, and he is stuck there, and he has to find a way to survive and hopefully get back to Earth. I originally didn't want to read this book or even see the movie because I thought it would be quite depressing. However, I did pick it up and I started reading it, and I could not put it down. It is so funny. I didn't expect a book about a man being stuck on an alien planet to be so funny, but it is. And it's science fiction, it's make-believe. Some of it you sit there and you go, that could never happen, but you believe it in the moment, and he's seriously like the MacGyver of Mars. So I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars because it really held my attention, and I just laughed the whole way through it. Next up is I Darkened by Kirsten White, which I read and I really loved. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a gender-bent version of the Vlad the Impaler myth, where Vlad is actually female. Her name is Lada, and it follows the story of Lada and her brother and the prince that they meet later on, and they form a friendship. And the power dynamics in these relationships in this book are amazing. And she is such a fierce character. She's not going to be to everyone's taste, I will tell you that now, but she's such a fierce character. It is amazing. And it did take me a couple of chapters to really get into it. And once I did, I couldn't put this book down because I just wanted to find out what happens, because it's set during the Ottoman Empire era, which I don't really know much about. But I thought this was really, really interesting to read. It is very dark. It is quite violent. So if you're not into those things, probably stay out of it, but I did really enjoy this book. Next up is a middle grade book that I read by Lauren Child, Ruby Redford, Look Into My Eyes. So my understanding of this book is that Ruby Redford is actually a character who's mentioned in Lauren Child's other series, Clara Speed, and she's created a series of books on them. Again, this is a book I picked up at a Scholastic book sale last year. I hadn't read it, just wanted to read it. It's a super easy read. It's not terribly difficult. It's a middle grade series. Ruby Redford is a very, very, very intelligent young woman who loves to solve puzzles and codes. She's recruited by a spy agency called Spectrum to help solve a mystery that they have uncovered. Her handler is filling in as her butler, and he's quite funny. His name is Hitch. I really enjoyed this. It's very light. It's very middle grade. I've got one more book that I had purchased from this series that I plan on reading. But yeah, good fun. I gave it about 3 out of 5 out of stars. The other standalone book I read this month was Song in the Dark by Christine Howe. It is a YA contemporary book, is an Australian book as well. It does have some quite serious themes in it. There's quite a bit of drug use, how that affects relationships. So the main character, Paul, finds himself in a bit of trouble and ends up in rehab. I have to admit, this is probably not my cup of tea. Again, this was a book that I'd picked up and I just wanted to read it to say that I'd read it. It's been sitting on my shelf for ages. I gave it 2.5 to 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because it's not my book. It is beautifully written. It's just not my thing. And finally, this is a book I did not finish. And it actually looks like 3 books, but I know that you can buy it all together as one. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I have tried to read this book so many times. Thought I'm going to give it one more shot. I'm in a really good reading frame of mind. I mean, I read 23 books in July. I could not read this. I don't know what it is. I'm sure it is an amazing book series. It is fantasy. It's very kind of highbrow sort of thing. I just found it really dry and I couldn't read it. I tried. I really, really tried. And I think I'm just going to have to give up because this is like my 3rd time trying to read this book and I just cannot get into it. I was looking for distractions. I've tried. That's all I can say. These are all the standalone books that I read in July. So stay tuned. I will have another video up hopefully tomorrow or maybe even today, featuring the series that I read in July. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below and what you thought. Any reviews that I've already done, I will leave down below for you, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching.